Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers, sisters, God seekers. Inshallah, you've been keeping well since our last session, session 3. And welcome to session 4, Finding God Through the World. Let's just have a quick recap, I guess, of what we've done so far. So we've established that it's normal to want to search and understand God. It actually comes from within. And once we established that, we then said, well, is it valuable? And we answered, yes, it is valuable. And it's not just valuable for us, but it's also valuable for humanity to also go and search and understand God and to enact upon this feeling that we have from within. And therefore, we concluded by saying we should go and try and find God. To which we said there are 2 ways to do this. And in the last session, we explored the first one, which is from within. This quicker way to find God, which is timeless, and it's in every type of person, and it's about us acknowledging it. And the second is that what we're going to cover today, which is finding God from external means. It's the longer way. It needs more thinking, more reflection, more losing your eyes to look around the world and seeing what's in front of us and what has been in front of us for the entirety of our life, and even before us as well. And that's what we're going to look at today. So we're going to try and find God through a different lens. And it's actually the lens we use every single day. You know, we could look at the world and we could say there isn't chaos everywhere. There isn't chaos everywhere. Now you may say, okay, fine, in politics there's chaos, but I'm saying let's look at the way the universe functions, right? The non-man-made things. It's in pretty decent shape. Chaos doesn't reign over it. Everything's working quite well. It's all in sync. You have night and day, and it's on this 24-hour timer, if you like. There's orbits, there's solar systems, there's galaxies, there's always air ready for us to breathe, be that oxygen for us and carbon monoxide for the plants. It's always there, right? Plants are growing, bees are flying, they're making honey, cows are enjoying themselves. Everyone's good. Everything's really working. So we see that the universe is moving towards a definite destination. Just like a great army under special order. It's just working. There isn't chaos everywhere. It works. So let's try and analyze how this has become the case, how this order has come about. Because look, for any organism or creation, there are always some special conditions that they are abiding by. So let's take an example. Let's take the example of a tree, right? A tree, in order to come into existence, needs proper soil, it needs the right temperature, it needs heat, it needs all of this to come together plus more, otherwise there's no tree. And the creation of these conditions calls for wisdom and knowledge and know-how. Something or someone must have created the manual to say, in order to create a tree, this is the environment and these are the resources it needs to happen. Each creation also has specific features. Take water and fire. It has unique traits that are part and parcel of their very being. And these traits follow very specific laws. So take water. It flows and it's made up in a certain way to be so. It's wet and it can be dried, and at a certain temperature it can evaporate. And on the other hand, fire, it spreads. It's made up in a very certain way and it's made to be so. It's hot, it can be extinguished using water, so on and so forth. So in the first example we said for organisms and creations, to bring them into existence, there's certain factors that need to be obeyed in order for that to happen. And then once this thing is created, that creation has special features. It has specific laws that it abides by. Water doesn't stand still, it flows. It's made up that way. It's wet. You put your hand in it, it gets wet. It can be dried. It evaporates, so on and so forth. And then if you look at our organs, for example, or the organs of any organism for that matter, it all works harmoniously together. If something threatens the body, all of these organs come together and they work as one to try and fend off this virus or this challenge that it faces. But so what? So what? These could all be coincidences, right? We would say, however, all of these things are signs of the order that exists in the universe, that there is a plan. There is a very careful plan on how things work and how they were made this way, the rules that they obey and how it all works together. The fact that the galaxies, as massive and great as they are, the planets, the land, the sea, through to the gases, the liquids, the solids, the organisms, all of these things, no matter how big or how tiny, they all work in function with one another. They follow an amazing order. And imagine if one of the most basic yet complex things didn't exist, everything would just turn up on itself. If gravity, for example, suddenly didn't exist, I'd need to hold this phone that's recording this, and it would be pretty difficult because I'd be floating in midair and going all over the place. In the same way, if oxygen wasn't here, I wouldn't be able to breathe in the next breath and then be able to share this next line that I'm going to. So just one small difference. If the temperature on the Earth was actually 100 degrees or 200 degrees and not 30s, and not on average in 20s, and now human temperature in around 30s, etc., it wouldn't be possible for me to live safely. So all of this is happening around us, and it's not by chance. Something like this just doesn't happen by chance. If one thing changes in the order, it all messes up and there's going to be chaos. So is there a link, therefore? This is the question that comes to mind. Is there a link, therefore, between this order that we see, that we've just proven that there is order happening? Is there a link between that order and wisdom? Or is it completely by chance? And that's what we want to try and answer now. So I would say any logical person would recognize that any sort of order in the world implies that there's wisdom, implies that there's thought and planning. How can we prove this? Let's take Google, for example, one of the most dominant businesses in the world today. And I remember when I was a kid, Google was just a search bar, and now it's so much more. When you look at Google, you see how all these teams work together. You see the products that they create, from GCP through to Google Mail, through to Google Drive, through to Android on mobile, all of these different things, all the different ideas that they come up with and how they work together, the support that they give to customers. Now, if I was to tell you, hey, you know this Google thing, it was all by chance. It was all by chance. It was all by luck. There was no organization. It just happened to happen. It happened to all work together, that somehow these Android devices, you can see all of the folders that you open up on there, on your computer. It's completely by chance. There's no organization. You'd be like, dude, you're crazy. In the same way, if I said, that steel tube that's going through the air at 36,000 feet at 500 miles per hour, it's completely by chance. That thing we call a plane? Yeah, it's completely by chance. It just happens to lift off, get to that altitude, get to that speed, maintain it, let people have a little meal on board, give air to the passengers even though the pressure's crazy, and then just land. It happens to land every single time. You'd be like, no. That's not by chance. There's a pilot there. And not just the pilot, there's also the creator of the plane in the first place. And not just creator of the plane, the creator of the concept of planes, the Wright brothers, they have a bit of credit to take as well. Man naturally looks for a source of knowledge and power whenever we notice that order and law prevails. Me telling you that Google was luck, Amazon was luck, Facebook was luck, planes were luck, you'd be like, no, Sadiq, you're being daft. You're being daft. Of course, there is a CEO behind that who made it work. Of course, there's a team that work together that make it work. We don't need reasoning to arrive at this conclusion. It's so obvious to all of us that are willing to embrace it. Therefore, wherever there is an organized system, there exists intelligence and wisdom behind it. Behind Google, Sundar Pichai at the moment, or since 2015. Behind planes, the Wright brothers, and now Boeing, Airbus, and then you have pilots who pilot them. And you just tell me I'm bonkers if I said the plane did it itself. So why do you tell me that I'm bonkers, that when I see the Earth facilitating the plane flying, that it's bonkers for me to think there's an organizer behind that? Why is it that when we make the jump towards this whole world that's around us, the universe, the genius that's gone into that, the wisdom behind that there isn't a creator there? Why are we letting our brains think that way? Is it because it's easier for us to identify a leader of a business because they're tangible, whereas the leader and the creator of the universe is something that is not like a human? It's something so unique. It's something that we have to try and find. But that makes sense because of how grand and great this universe is, that the creator of it must also be phenomenal and complex and unlimited. And it's not just our logic that takes us through that way as well. We can also prove this through the laws of probability for those of you who enjoy maths. And I'm going to stretch and say, call this maths, right? Statistics. Some would say, look, it could just be down to chance. If you asked, for example, let's try and debunk this. If you were to ask an illiterate person to write an essay on a typewriter, someone who can't read or write, and we say, hey, look, buddy, try and write an essay. Here's a piece of paper, here's a pen, good luck. What's the chance that he would manage to write down a letter on that piece of paper? Let's call it 10%, a tenth. What's the chance that he could write a second letter next to that and a third letter next to that created a 3-letter word? Let's say it's a tenth times a tenth times a tenth, 1,000. What's the chance that he could then do that again for another word? We have to do 1,000 times 1,000 now. A millionth. Or whatever that is. No. Well, you get the picture I'm getting at here. 4 zeros. All of a sudden, in order to create this page, accidentally, with an amazing essay, with an amazing novel, with an amazing article, with an amazing sentence, it could happen. But if he can't read or write, the chance that he can write a first letter correctly, let alone a second, let alone the word making sense, let alone a sentence, let alone a page, let alone an essay, let alone a good essay, the probability is tiny. And in the same way for all these things in the universe to just happen to work together, that's a pretty slim probability, and probably tending very close to zero, but most certainly it would be statistically insignificant regardless of what law you're using to derive statistical significance. And the Quran tells us about these signs, but it asks us, are you going to believe? Surah Fussilat, Surah 41, verse 53, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ أَوَلَمْ يَكْفِ بِرَبِّكَ أَنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٌ. We will soon show them our signs in the universe and in their own souls until it will become quite clear to them that it is the truth. But is it not sufficient concerning your Lord that He is, over all things, a witness? Just reflect on that. We'll show them the signs in the universe and in our own souls. Yeah, we can see those signs. We've seen the Earth, we've seen Mars, we've seen Venus, we've seen Jupiter, we've seen Saturn, we've seen all of these planets. We've seen the animal kingdom, we've seen plants, we've seen the sun, we've seen all these amazing things, the oceans, the mountains, the hills, the colours of the world. And even in our own souls, we've seen our lungs, we've seen our hearts, we've seen our kidney, liver, etc., etc. We've seen all these amazing things. So Allah's saying, until it will become quite clear to them that it's the truth. Well, yeah, I think there is something special here. But is it not sufficient concerning your Lord that He is over all things a witness? Do you not realise that this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do you still need someone to tell you, hey buddy, knock on your shoulder? It wasn't by chance that Google was built. It wasn't by chance that Amazon was built. It wasn't by chance that all of this creation in the universe was built. In the same way, there must be a wise brain behind those businesses, behind those inventions. There must be an infinitely wise brain behind this infinitely expanding universe. Just think about the human brain for a moment. It's fascinating. If just one part of your brain is damaged, a tiny part, you risk forgetting all of your memories, all of the past. Certain nerves have this ability to control all the voluntary movements of our body, walking, looking, speaking, yet other nerves control the involuntary parts, stomach, heart, etc. How could nature, that's unconscious, that's unintelligent, create intelligence? Could something unintelligent create intelligence? In Surah Al-Dhariyat, Surah 51, verse 21, وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. And in your own souls too. Will you not then see? It's in you. Are you still not seeing it? Are you still not recognizing it? This wisdom that is around us is so clear. The creation is so clear. The order is so clear. What is it that's stopping us from accepting it, that there is a creator behind it, this all-wise creator behind it. Why do I not let my brain jump there and embrace this? What am I trying to do by resisting? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it so many times, but this line is beautiful, as we just mentioned. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. And in your own souls too, will you not then see? And now I really hope that when we look around the world, when we look around everything that we see and interact with, that has been created somehow, some way, by something. And inshallah, once we now recognize that there must be wisdom behind this order that we interact with, we recognize that this wisdom is from the all-intelligent, all-wise, all-great creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the second way by which we can go and find Allah. We don't need to wait for these calamities. Rather, we can find Him through His creation every single second of our day. I hope this has been useful, and inshallah you can join us for the next session, and I hope we get to see you there. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.